Here are the top 10 things to do before 118 comes out. So if you're anything like me, you put your fire pit right in the middle of your room. Now in 117, that was no problem. In fact, you could stand on it and be fine. You can sit on it and be fine. But in 118, you're not going to be able to do that. So if you go ahead and convert your world to 118 and you didn't move your fire pit, you might light it up and walk over it like you normally do and start burning your little feetsies. So be a civilized seraph and set up your fire pit on a counter like this, where you're less apt to stand on it. Stop being like me and get your fire pits off the ground. Speaking of burning yourself, you may want to get all of your hot metal work done now in 117. Oh, hello. Because that will not be possible. You will not be able to handle hot ingots, and you will not be able to stand on this. You're going to need to use the tongs, but if you're anything like me, you're going to forget every time. Now, obviously, you can't do all your metalworking in 117. You're always going to need to keep doing metalworking, but maybe if you can do as much as possible, you won't have to burn your little hands like that. Otherwise, you're going to have to grab some tongs. And all you need to do with the tongs is put them in your other hand, and then you can run around with this ingot to your heart's content. You can place it on an anvil. You can place it back there. You can do whatever you want, as long as you've got the tongs. Now that you've got all your hot metal work done, you may want to make some chests, because in 118, you're going to need to add some scrap metal here. So if you create a bulk supply of chests now, then you can have them on hand throughout your gameplay in 118, just like that. Or if you're really ambitious, maybe a stack of double chests. In 118, you can see here that you cannot make a chest with just boards anymore. Now you make a bookshelf. So if you didn't make a ton of chests already, you're going to need these nails and strips to make one wooden chest. Gets pretty expensive if you want a lot of chests. An alternative is the crates. And while you're playing around with wood, you might want to go ahead and make yourself some of the doors, the OG doors, because when 118 rolls out, you're only going to be able to buy these. You're not going to be able to craft them anymore. In fact, you may want to make a whole stack of OG doors so that you have them on hand, just like that. You see, in 118, you're not going to be able to put different boards together to make this door. Each wood type will have its own door, and you'll have to use that specific wood type for the entire door. If I use two different types here, you can see I can't craft a normal door, but each wood type now has its own door that can be crafted with its own unique color. They look virtually the same as far as style, but the color changes. And speaking of stocking up on stuff, if you're anything like me, you're excited about the bookmaking that will be coming in 118. So you may want to get yourself some supplies to do that. These are some items that you're going to need to make some books. If you're really ambitious, you can collect all sorts of colored leather right now, because when 118 comes out, you're going to be able to make colored books. For instance, if we look at this yellow leather here, you can see that you can now make a book. The yellow leather makes an olive book if you add some green leather to it, along with some parchment. So if we place some parchment there, some green leather down below, you can see we get an olive book, and that can be placed in our bookshelf. It uses a lot of parchment, so you're going to want to gather a lot of resources to make parchment. You can make parchment with this scraped hide or with these linen fiber pulps that comes from flax and bandages and that sort of thing. And speaking of books, when you're out exploring in 117 and you come across a book or a scroll in these collapsed chests, like this one here, make sure you don't actually read it. Because if you save that until the 118 update, you're going to be able to keep that. See, if I right-click this to read it, see how it disappears? In 118, you're going to be able to hold on to that scroll and read it. So don't open any new books or scrolls that you have or any that you have on hand. So if you kept any of your books or scrolls into 118, you can see that the scroll has changed a little bit, but now you can right-click on it to read it, and you can see the scroll still exists in your inventory. This way you can store it on bookshelves and whatnot and keep it as a part of your collection. Now, when you find scrolls and books, you can grab them and bring them back to your base, but these clutter blocks here, in 117, you're never going to get anything. So if you want any of these to decorate with at your base, leave them alone until 118, because in 118 we have a 50% chance of actually getting the blocks. So I probably would have collected one of those ladders. In 118 we should be able to collect some of these things now. See, I got that. What do they call that? That's just ruins. Maybe I can get a metal barrel. Yep, metal barrel. Maybe a ruined drill. Yeah, I got a ruined drill. You're not going to get everything. That one broke. So you have about a 50% chance of getting each of these clutter item blocks. Then you can bring them back to your base and decorate with them. It's pretty cool, actually. One of my favorite things. Speaking of not breaking anything, don't break your locust nests anymore in 117. Because apparently in 118, you're going to be able to get some Jonas parts from these nests. So you may want to just keep track of them and add a waypoint. And then come back to it. Well, if we don't die, we can take a look at that Jonas piece. So we got this Jonas part from the locust nest. And that's used for interesting 118 gear, like teleporters and masks. And if you've got any epic underground lava pools like this that you've always been dreaming of setting down some kind of a path through, you might want to do it now in 117, because apparently you're not going to be able to place blocks as well in lava when 118 comes out. So let's see what happens when we try to path in lava now. Yeah, I'm clicking and I can't place anything. This spot is too hot to put my hands in, it says. Thanks for the boost, buddy. And now for the number one thing that you should do in 117 before updating your world to 118 is grabbing these wild vine tips. Because apparently in 118 we're not going to be able to collect these anymore. So if you want these to decorate with, you better collect a stack of them now. We'll still have these vine pieces, but the tips are going away. And now let's try it in 118. See, we didn't get the tip, we just got a segment of the wild vine. So if I place that back, the tip is gone. But maybe all wild vine tips are gone. Let's take a look. Nope, you can still get the tips in your creative inventory, but apparently you can't get them in survival anymore. So make sure you stock up on your tips before you convert your world. And one last bonus change, say goodbye to your zoos, because in 118, these wild animals, they will despawn after a certain amount of time. Just like that. So if you're thinking of updating your 117 world to 118, those are 10 things you might want to consider before upgrading. How's that for a chunk border between 117 and 118? Look at that craziness.